Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Diane Adam, and I'm here with my partner and co-creator in Touchstone, Emily Smith. We welcome and thank you for joining us for today's Touchstone topic, a conversation on healing justice with Jordan Killebrew. Jordan is here from Santa Barbara. He is co-founder of Juneteenth Santa Barbara and lead co-organizer of the local branch of Healing Justice. He's a community organizer, has, as he says, here we go, an abnormal love of community. That's my kind of guy, right? Especially in Santa Barbara. His day job is at the Santa Barbara Foundation as Director of Communications. What's a webinar without a stumble? In addition to that, Jordan founded Project IV Love, the inspiration that helped raise over $50,000 for the Love and Remembrance Garden in Isla Vista in that inaugural year. The garden is a community effort that honors the students that lost their lives in the tragic Isla Vista shootings of that year. You can learn more about Jordan and see his TEDx presentation on that topic at jordankillebrew.com, and I put his contact info in the chat. So the personal part, I count Jordan as a friend, a colleague, and a collaborator. We've worked closely together and will soon be working on a team towards diversity, equity, and inclusion at a project outside of this. I look forward to being connected with Jordan for many years to come, and I especially look forward to the day when we can hug in person again. I know Jordan to be a great listener, of solid counsel, and a steady demeanor. He is graceful and fun. Today, we're grateful to have Jordan with us to be our guide through this conversation. Touchstone is committed to being and helping others to become allies in the current conversation around racial justice and equity. We have a few questions ready, and we'll also be utilizing the Q&A for you to ask questions of your own. We will monitor and collate or combine a few questions that are like, and while we stay in conversation with Jordan. So as we begin, I'd like to quote author James Baldwin. "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced." So with that, Jordan, here we are facing a new conversation.
Well, thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. I'm so grateful to be here, and just grateful to have a conversation and the start of a conversation, and probably many conversations to come. And I guess this is the start, just to give a little bit of background about who I am and where I come from. So I am a product of a East Coast mom that grew up in the Bronx and a West Coast dad that grew up in Compton. And if you think about all the stories and all of the experiences that they had growing up from the 50s up until college when they met, that have been shared down to me, that's inherited information and sometimes inherited trauma. And for me, growing up, we moved around a lot. So we primarily lived in Los Angeles. That's where I was born. I lived in El Paso, Texas randomly for 3 years, and moved back to LA, and then went to high school in Bakersfield, of all places.
Wow.
And this is where I probably had my first moment. I had heard about inequities. I had heard about, injustices, but a month living into Bakersfield, I was walking home, and I just remember this car was following me, and I didn't know what was going on. And as soon as I turned around, there was profanity, horrible things. I was called horrible things, and I was jumped. And I was jumped because I was Black, and I was jumped because I was gay. And in that moment, that was before cell phones. That was before my parents were actually in LA, so I was just completely alone. And in that moment, I was very much, how do I say, my world was shaken. I went into probably a pretty deep depression, and I just remember my dad at one point telling me, "Hey, Jordan, only you can make yourself happy." And that has stuck with me for so many years. And I'm proud to say that, by the end of high school, I was president of my whole school. And then I also was accepted to UCSB, and I sadly, no offense to Bakersfield, never went back really. My parents don't live there anymore, so that's okay. But and when I came to UCSB, I think that's where I was actually able to explore not only my queer identity. I grew up in a very religious and culturally religious household, but also explore just who I was and who I could be. And I was fortunate enough to become a resident assistant, and that's when things started to click for me. Because at first I didn't like UCSB, but becoming a resident assistant, I was able to understand I can help others, and I can help these first years understand university life. And that's where the community part came in, where I was like, this is what I've been missing my whole life. I've been missing a community that I can be a part of and engage with and learn with and build relationships. I think moving around a lot as a kid made me crave that stability to really dig my roots in deep. Fortunate to be an RA. I've had so many wonderful leadership trainings with thanks to Linda Croyle, who's on the call, who used to run those programs. And after I graduated, I stuck around. I didn't want to leave this place. I think because I wanted to stay rooted in this community. But also, as mentioned, Project Ivy Love. I still had residents that lived in Ivy. And I remember that night telling them to just come to my apartment because I don't know what's going on. Nobody knows what's going on. And sadly, 6 gauchos were murdered. And because of that, we rallied together and we needed to do something in their honor, and we built a park. 2 years after that, and this will parlay into the kind of healing justice and Black Lives Matter, is July 2016. We found our country at a place where it was heavy. There was Philando Castile was just murdered. Alton Sterling was just murdered. The 9 police officers were just murdered. And I just remember being with my friends and thinking, we need to do something. We have to act. We have to do something. And so we planned a candlelight vigil in front of the Santa Barbara courthouse, county courthouse. Mm-hmm. And what happened there was pretty interesting because prior to it and planning to it, we got a call from the police department, and it was like, oh, can we meet? And I was like, okay. And, prior to this, I had not had a positive experience with police. Like, I've been pulled over on my way to the Santa Barbara airport and have been told, aren't you on probation? Without even saying, hey, hello, what's your name? Like, I've had a pretty interesting situation with police prior to this. And in that meeting, which was interesting because they asked us to go to the police department, which if you ever go to the Santa Barbara Police Department, it is a terrifying place because they have all these little, I call them catacombs, and little hallways. And then it ended up in this big room with the current mayor and a couple city council members. And I'm just like, what, are we in trouble? What's going on? And next thing I know, they say, how can we help? And I'm like, well, we could have met at a coffee shop, first off, the amount of stress that you just gave me. But that was an interesting time. And we had a successful Candlelight Vigil. And out of that, I met Simone Ruskamp, who basically came to me and was just in tears. And we just held each other because we knew that our collective experience and everything that's happening is just not right. And it's not okay. And we can do better. Mm-hmm. And so from there, a kind of unofficial Black Lives Matter Facebook popped up, and we were selected to be the leaders of that because people were asking, what can we do? What can we do? How can we act? What can we do? How can we do better? And it's interesting because at one point, Simone and I were very much, and Crystal as well. I have to give shout out to Crystal Farmer Seagart and Chiani Dree. Those are my sisters in the work. We all were working towards working with the police department. And I mean, courtoid holds, use of force policy, looking at a civilian review board. These are all things that Simone has been talking about for 4 years. And for me, I was more looking at, let's look at unconscious bias, implicit bias. And it's interesting that I was able to work with the police department when it seemed like Simone wasn't getting anywhere with the police department. And I had to realize at a certain point my privilege in that, and that I need to step back and I need to uplift my sister's work. And so when we think about what happened on May 31st, when there's 3,000 people on the steps of the Santa Barbara County Courthouse, and Simone and Crystal are saying the demands of Black Lives Matter, to me, this is work that they've been talking about for four plus years. Mm-hmm. And so May 31st happened. It was a large gathering. We marched to the police department and were met with caution tape. And in that moment, we asked all Black folks to come to the front and to lay in the street. And for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, the amount of time that George Floyd, yes, so yeah. And we asked non-Black folks to kneel with us in solidarity. And we asked the police to kneel with us too. And at that moment, they didn't. And for me, that was really hard for me, because I am on the police chief's advisory board. Well, I don't know if I am anymore, but I hope I'm still on the police chief's advisory board, because it made me realize there's more work to be done. And granted, after that, there was several other, rallies, and the youth rally, we have to uplift our Black youth. They did such an amazing job with their rally, but we have to still acknowledge that on May 31st, there was this, I wouldn't even say altercation, but there was this divide in our community that didn't need to be there. And I just have to acknowledge that. And there was also a lot of other things that happened in that moment as well. But from there, we put forth demands to City Council and to the county. And those demands were quite simply, we should, Juneteenth. I can't tell you how many people have just learned about Juneteenth this year. And that is devastating. That's unfortunate, because, it's a part of our history. It's something that we should be really celebrating. And so we asked the city for support for that. We also asked the city to look at historical Black landmarks. We're learning, with the thanks to Sojourner Kincaid role, that there are so many historical Black landmarks in Santa Barbara, especially like the EO's nightclub used to be Black owned. And the lot, the lot where I believe Antioch is and the farmer's market is, used to be Lincoln Elementary School, which was a Black elementary school. And I think soon to be proposed site for the Santa Barbara Police Department. So we have to, honor our history. We also wanted to look at a civilian review board. Like, what does that look like for the Santa Barbara Police Department? Because they're supposed to protect and serve our community. Why can't the community also be a part of that in some way, shape, or form? And so we put forth those demands. We were successful with all of them. And now we've had several conversations and the formation of Healing Justice, which is a beautiful, beautiful group where we have had Black community meetings. And when I say Black community meetings, it's been such a healing time to just have a Zoom call with Black folks. And I've never had this many Black folks on a call before. And it's a moment where I'm able to actually just take a deep breath and relax and find community with each other, because we often don't get that. And we've been having those every 2 weeks. We've also been offering, healing roots sessions where, there aren't that many Black psychologists and therapists here in town. And we have been providing group therapy sessions because in this time, as we know, it's been really, really traumatic and really, really hard for our communities. And so we wanted to provide that service. Along with that, we have been working, again, with historical landmarks, identifying that. We have been working with with Juneteenth and making sure that the funding is there for Juneteenth. And Juneteenth is also connected to our history. So Villain Review Board working with the city about that. And then another beautiful thing that came out of this is in one of our Black community meetings, a community member said, why don't we have a Black impact hub? And from there, we came up with this idea of a Black African-American Cultural Resource Center that can bring together all the wonderful Black organizations that we have here in our county and be that hub and space to really grow and show our culture and be proud of it and show our history and also take our history and uplift our local artists and everything. And so I'm really grateful to the founders of Healing Justice, which is Chelsea Lancaster, Anna, Simone, Crystal, and Courtney Walton. These ladies were really, really intentional with forming Healing Justice, and I'm just happy to be a co-liaison to just share their story and to continue the work. So
Super.
that was a lot.
That was a lot, and it was all fantastic. You know, knowing that on this call there's a whole rainbow of people. Jordan, can you talk just a moment about how you in your work envision the rest of the community, no matter who they are, what they are, where they're coming from? How can we all be allies towards any of these great projects and processes that you've mentioned here?
Absolutely. So Healing Justice is really good at organizing. And so whether it's a city council meeting where we're trying to advocate for funding or advocate for a civilian review board, where you feel comfortable, we want to meet you where you're at. So we provide talking points, we provide email talking points. We're really, really engaged and need allies and accomplices in this work because we just want a better community. We feel that, you know, if our most vulnerable are asking for something, we should stand up and, you know, be allies with them. So I highly suggest, if you follow us on Instagram, I think it's Healing Justice SB, or Facebook. Website is impending and coming soon. But essentially, just listen to us. Please just listen and engage with us, and we'll let you know.
That's fantastic. That's what we want to hear. Emily.
So Jordan, I'm kind of monitoring the Q&A coming from the audience. Right now we don't have any up there posted, but we did get some ahead of time. So one of the first questions I wanted to toss your way is about your mission statement of the BLM, needing some explanation more in depth with some time spent on disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure. Can you give us a little bit more what that means?
So when you think of Western nuclear family structure, it's a mom, dad. I think that's what we're talking about. I think what we're saying is expand upon that. Let's open it up to LGBTQ rights. Let's open up to more than just what that is, because we have single moms, we have single dads, we have two dads, two moms. And so it's really looking at, let's open it up to a lot more than just what is a normal, Western standard family style.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. And if you could, being an educator myself, that's my background. I am always trying to push in the conversation about education. And I'm wondering how education fits into your overall platform in regards to mission and programs and policies and those kinds of things.
Absolutely. So I want to make a clear distinction. So Healing Justice encompasses folks from Black Lives Matter, because some folks want to be members of Black Lives Matter, but Healing Justice also encompasses folks that support it, but also may not want to be members. And so today I want to talk about Healing Justice in particular, because we are about education. That's really what we're trying to do, especially with our historical landmarks, educating the community about, you know, the Black community that was here and has slowly moved out of Santa Barbara. It's really important that we educate our history, we educate our youth, looking to our youth and uplifting our youth's demands, especially during their rally and what they presented to the Santa Barbara Unified School District. So education, it's a part of that, and it's also a part of the relationships. And so we've had so many calls as co-liaisons with so many different people. And I have always said that this is either the start of a conversation or a continuation of a conversation, because we're building relationships, we're building trust, and we're working together towards a common goal, which is providing support for our Black community.
Oh, there's so many things to touch on. It's really difficult. When you've talked a little bit about how we can support the healing justice in the local conversations, and you've given us some great tips. And of course, Emily and I will reach out to the folks on this call with more links to those things. But how do you see the local Santa Barbara and Santa Barbara County, even maybe the Central Coast conversations, being able to expand or impact the broader national conversation?
Well, I think if we think about models, if we think about, you know, I think our community is the perfect model to model the way, if you will. We have a lot of good things going, but we also need to do the work to be better. And so I think with our community, we can help start programs and templates to help show other communities how to be successful. I think that's really will be, again, I keep on saying model, but model for success, for lack of a better word.
Good. That's good. We mentioned before the call that we visited with Tracy Brown a couple weeks ago, and she gave us all what she refers to as learner's permit in regards to all of the issues around social justice and activism, because this is, even though we know about it, we've never been fully engaged and participatory in it. And so it's new to a lot of people in that regard. And so one of the things that we've talked about is how to maintain the stamina, you know, and to not let it die out. You know, a lot of times people put their head down, and, you know, we mentioned this earlier about it's going to blow over, it's going to go away, things will be back to normal. But we don't want that to happen, but we also understand that individuals do get burnt out. It's, you know, we're dealing with a lot of interesting things in the world right now with this pandemic. Just the way we got to go about business is very stressful. And then, you know, wrapped around all of these very, very important things that we want to help and support and be involved in. How, you know, could you provide us maybe some advice and guidance for how to keep that? I mean, you've been at this for a long time. How have you maintained your stamina and not get discouraged or tired, or just, you know, to keep it going and not wane out?
Well, the truth is, Emily, is that I do get discouraged and I do get tired. Let's start with that truth. Like, it's not always a high. It's not always perfect. But if before this call, us three were talking about my past week. It was my birthday, and my brother was so kind to bring up my family, and I got to socially distancedly safe hold my niece, who's 3 years old. And every time I see her, every time I see my nieces and nephews, and I think about my own past experience, I can't let that happen to them.
Oh.
Period. I can't let them go through the stuff that I went through. That if they have to do that, I'm not doing my job. That's how I feel about this work. And so if I can make it a better community for Harper and Hayden, if I can make it a better community for Zora, if I can make it a better community for all of my nieces and nephews, that's what keeps me going. Because we can do better. We can do better and lean into our discomfort. Like, I'm not going to allow discomfort to stop us from being our best.
Yeah, thank you.
That's beautiful. Speaking kind of along that same line, when we're in community with people or when we see things on the news or even on our own social medias and in our own family and friend circles, how can you give us some, as Emily uses a wonderful word, guidance on dispelling this sort of a retort of all lives matter as a way of taking myself outside of the struggle or removing myself from the circle of responsibility? Can you talk a little bit about that, the difference? I mean, I know there's a huge difference, but how do we help make it be not a difference?
So there's so many things that come to mind. I'm like, where do I start? The term all, our Declaration of Independence said all men are created equal. Yet when that was created, all men weren't necessarily equal. When I think of our Pledge of Allegiance with liberty and justice for all, I feel like it still didn't cover all Black folks. And what we see in the data is, Black and brown communities are at a disadvantage. And so it's really hard to hear all lives matter, because one, like, why is that the retort? I'm literally just trying to say I'm existing in this space and I do not feel equal. So how can we really make it so that everybody feels equal? And I don't know. I think if me saying Black Lives Matter, if my life matters, and that brings anger or discomfort, I think that's something that, I'm a huge proponent of self-awareness and learning more about yourself and learning more in that discomfort. I'm going to call out Linda Croyle again. She always talked about discomfort and being and sitting in that and learning about it. If that brings you discomfort, why? Start questioning yourself. Because I think at the end of the day, once you go through that, you'll be able to show up better for your community members that are asking. We're simply asking for help. We're simply asking for common language to say things aren't right for our community. And to hear a retort like all lives matter is just like you're not willing to listen. You're not going to take the time to listen. So my response to that is, how about you take a moment and think inward and reflect.
Yeah, thank you,
Jordan. And I liked what you said earlier too about the fact that this is really about making a better community, a better world, and what's better makes it better for one makes it better for all. And I think it's that we got to look inside and reflect on a daily basis. We do have a question. With the commission and board applications opening up for the city of Santa Barbara soon, it's an opportunity to expand representation on important decision-making bodies. Has Healing Justice thought about pushing candidates to apply for upcoming vacancies? And related to that, in your opinion, what can the city do to make those opportunities more accessible? And you get a big shout out for all the work you're doing.
Oh, well, thank you. Absolutely. I mean, the thing is we want to encourage people where comfortable to step into the leadership roles. Like for me, I have felt in many times that I have been a liaison to the Black community. So much so that sometimes it feels like it's a monolith, and it's like, no, I can't do that. And I have been realizing in myself, I need to take a step back. I need to take a step back to allow others to have their voice and to be out in the forefront. But here I am on a Touchstone call. But I say that to say that, yes, we're encouraging everyone to step up into their power, to step into, again, with discomfort. It may be uncomfortable, maybe like you may be nervous, but at the same time, why not step into it? And so we're encouraging folks to please look out for, leadership roles. I'm so happy to connect anyone who's interested in joining boards. There's so many amazing nonprofits that are working overtime right now. Let's just talk about that. And they're always looking for diversity, equity, inclusion, and always looking for folks to join their board. So I've been saying that like a broken record in our Healing Justice meetings.
Mhm.
Maybe it's the mystery of joining a board. You know, a lot of people see it as an elevation, when in fact all boards need all voices for
Yeah.
all kinds of reasons, and
And
people are afraid.
absolutely, and represent the communities they serve.
Right.
And I think the second part to that question, sorry, I like to write down the questions,
Good.
is how can the city and county do better in promoting it? Well, you know, send this information out to your listserv, send it out to these nonprofits that are so connected with folks. Just promote it a little bit more if possible, because I didn't learn about these, you know, commissions and boards unless I already knew about them, and I
Yeah.
had to go look for them.
Mhm.
So how can we make that more common knowledge?
Yeah. Oh, since we're talking and since we're in conversation, I personally have had a number of times with somebody where after I've left a conversation, I've thought, "Ooh, that was the wrong word. I might have hurt their feelings." You know, any sort of again with guidance is an apology. You know, should somebody go back and say, "I know that was the wrong, you know, a precise word," or "I know that my sentiment might have come off as flippant or not cool." You know, is there any sort of, I hate to use the word reparation, but is there any way of repairing that so that we can stay in conversation?
Yeah. So it's relationships are so important.
Yeah.
I can't stress that enough. Relationships are so important. And, you know, Dan, I know you, and you're a very, you always have a kind heart. And for me, for anybody that may have this moment of like, ooh, because I even have it sometimes myself, like we're all learning. We're all learning, and we're all trying to do our best to make this world better and our society better. And so I think if you know, approach a person with an open heart and just say, oh, I'm sorry, and have that conversation and actually start that dialogue, I think it's fair, but it also is contingent upon that person. And so for me, I can't say there's a, you know, blanket, you know, thing to say, but as long as your intentions are pure and you're authentic and your heart is in the right place, I would say.
Uh-huh.
I have a hard time with that term, but your heart is a pure intent, then I think it should be well received. To just say, hey, can we check in? Are we good? I think that's always good with any type of friendship, with any type of situation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
That's good. I know you mentioned this early on, um, Jordan, about your community center and your impact hub. Um, can you kind of give us an update, like what stage are you at in making all of that happen?
You know, we are in very early stages. So,
And then if you need help, like how can people help you with that?
oh, absolutely. We need all the help we can get. So, it's a Black African American Cultural Resource Center, and that the name is important because it encompasses so much more than a community center. And out of our Black community meetings, we actually just had folks put all their wishes, desires into a long list, a Google Doc. And from there, we've had several meetings with the city. Now we've moved into having keeping city folks on that call, but moved into talking with some philanthropists in the region to talk about and imagine how this can come into light. And we know that there are phases of it, right? There's a beginning phase, because right now in COVID, we can't really meet in person. But what happens after that? Or what are the immediate needs for, especially for our youth? How can we support them, whether it's tutoring, whether it's also just childcare for our Black and Brown communities? And then it's also looking at the different phases of like, is this a capital campaign that we need to work on so that it is Black owned and also a hub for all the amazing Black organizations that serve our county. And so we're in the very early stages, but nothing but positivity and nothing but great things, because everybody wants to help and it's going to take us all. So there's lots more to come out of that.
Good, good. Can you I think Diane early on in the chat kind of put where to find you, but can you tell people like um, like all, because you have several social media sites, websites, that kind of stuff, and so where people can find you and get connected with you and stay informed.
Absolutely. So hjsb.org is coming soon. We also have
You're signs up there. We're like, dang, he can multitask.
Healing Justice SB at protonmail.com. I think that's it. We're happy to engage with folks. And then, you know, I'm jordankillebrew.com if you want to get in touch with me. And then we also, my email hasn't changed for years, for probably 20 years, with jordankillebrew@gmail.com. If you have follow-up questions. So yeah.
You're lucky you started off with a really good one. Some of us who took emails out early on, they're not appropriate.
Well, don't ask me about my instant message name, but yeah.
That's awesome.
Speaking of names and nomenclature, this is kind of a base question, but an important one, because now we're invited to have conversations about Black Lives Matter. And can you discuss just a moment the difference between Black and African American, and are they interchangeable? Is one supposed to be used and the other one dropped? It's kind of confusing.
So I think lots of Black folks use them interchangeably. I think it goes back to relationships. Some folks identify as African American, some folks identify as Black. For me, and this is how I see it, is I think African American is a little bit more country specific. And so for me, it's, I'm not too sure exactly where I come from. I do know that I'm Creole. I have roots in Louisiana. But for me, the term Black, and with the capital B, is so much richer. It encompasses what is our shared experience, our culture, and activities. It's like to me, it's a more global term. And it personifies who we are in a grander scale. So you will see me, and probably in my writing, you see me use it probably back and forth, African American, Black. We use it for the Black African American Cultural Resource Center to encompass it. But I think African American tends to be the more safer term. But I am Blackity Black. I'm Black.
We're all learning that words matter, so.
Yeah, they do.
And we're learning. What are you reading? What are you watching these days? Tell us, give us some resources. Connect us with some things that we need to know about.
I'm wearing shorts, just so you know.
Oh, you know, our jean still says "business on the top, party on the bottom."
No, it's COVID life. But just finished this lovely book, How Long Until Black Future Month, and I really enjoyed it. Jemison, I always mess up her name. Jemison is really great. Highly recommend. Good read, easy read, but just beautiful writing. And what am I watching? I have been on, York is, my husband just looked at me. He was laughing at me because I have been at a point where I've been not necessarily watching too much stuff. Like I watched John Oliver, but I actually have had pretty packed nights given all of my extracurricular activities. And so what that leaves me with is moments with my husband and moments where I just fall asleep immediately. So I will get back to you on that.
So, we like podcasts, all kinds of stuff.
Code Switch. I have a whole bunch of them, but I'll share those a little bit later. Let me get my list for you.
This is my latest. I'm reading this right now. Have you seen this? Cast, The Origins of Our Discontent by Isabel Wilkerson. I heard it got released and I ordered it straight away. And there's a quote in here by James Baldwin that I wanted to share with you. You're probably very familiar with it. because even if I should speak, no one would believe me. And they would not believe me precisely because they would know that what I said was true.
Mm.
Do you want to talk to us about that? Am I putting you on the spot?
No. Can you say it one more time? Just
Yes.
read it back for everyone to hear.
Yes.
Thank you.
Emily will gladly draw that up again. She always comes up with the best passages.
Because even if I should speak, no one would believe me, and they would not believe me precisely because they would know that what I said was true.
So when I think of that, I think of there is you all alluded to it earlier in this call of afraid that things will go back to normal, afraid that things will not be as passionate about diversity, equity, inclusion. And I think what Mr. Baldwin is talking about and what is really true is there is discomfort around the fact that for some folks, their ancestors owned slaves. Mm-hmm. And that is the truth that I feel that he is talking about, that makes people cringe and makes people feel uncomfortable, and that we have yet to deal with or unpack and talk about. And so I think that is something that is so powerful in his artistry, because at times that's what we're not talking about.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable. Mm-hmm.
I have a friend that says often the difference between love and hate is understanding. And that's what a conversation is all about, is being aware and listening. And like Jordan said earlier, that self-awareness piece of examining and being curious rather than furious. We could just close off instead of wanting to converse and ask the questions. And some of these questions are very difficult, but we're happy to be able to ask them of you, Jordan, and to have some dialogue. And we thank you for that.
Of course. And I mean, I'm just always happy to have a conversation. I love talking about this, obviously, but I am always happy to just have a conversation and to learn, because there is, as much as I'm sharing, I am also learning and exchanging information. And this is what community does. Right. We're always sharing and learning and growing together.
Right.
Yeah. I'm looking at, there's not a lot of questions going up, but there's a lot of comments going on in the chat. And one individual, and I know you kind of hit on this earlier on, but maybe we can revisit just a little bit of it. Is there more for us to learn about what is happening with healing justice and how the community can rally support for the systemic issues we want to change?
Absolutely. So as part of me being co-liaison was really setting the groundwork of the organization. And so with that, it's looking at, being thankful to the Santa Barbara Foundation, which I work, full transparency, to be the fiscal sponsor. And that process just completed. We have to sign the paperwork, but anyways, so setting the foundation so that way we can, get our website up, start taking donations, start sharing with the world all of this great work that's happened over the last 2 months. And so I'm hoping that in the next week, we're able to do that and be a little bit more clear on what we need from our community members to help us succeed in everything that we do. In the interim, we have been, like I mentioned, on social media, on Instagram, on Facebook, sharing, call city council if you believe in this, help us. And also with the county as well. And so we'll continue to do that. But just keep an eye out on our social media, especially when our website goes live.
Mm-hmm.
Super, and you'll let us know that so we can share it with our.
Oh, I will gladly.
Super.
So I put some podcasts in there. American Police episode, the 1619 Project, and Code Switch. These are some good ones. Those are some popular ones that I hope folks are tuning into and learning a lot about.
Great. Thank you for chatting it up.
It's good. Good. Diane, did you have any other questions on that end?
No, I think I've kind of gone down the little list that we had sort of talked about. I just appreciate the conversation and the crowd that we have here today. And I just want to acknowledge the fact that we have quite a bunch of folks, and whether that's Touchstone's doing or Jordan's doing, a combination of the two, we're just, Emily and I are just so thankful to have a lovely, lovely crowd today. We hope to continue the conversation.
Yeah, and I thank you everyone for being here. I think there's one point that I kind of want to note. Issues of injustice happen all the time, and I think we always have to be ever constant and ever vigilant. I used to work at a place and where I knew it wasn't the right place for me. Let's just say that. But there was a time where my colleagues were sending around a video with a colleague that was intoxicated and saying the N-word. And when I brought it up to leadership, it was, oh, we don't do that. And so we have to be ever vigilant, because to me, I was looking for my colleagues to be an ally and say, no, this did happen, but what happened is that was dismissed. And how that made me feel was, I thought I was losing my mind. Like, am I being irrational? No, I'm actually not. And so grateful that I don't work at that place anymore. But we have to step up for folks. We have to, be, again, ever vigilant. I also want to share that there was a beautiful moment, and if Jackie Carrera, I think she's on the call, I'm probably gonna start crying, because after the May 31st rally, I had a heavy heart, and I had to take a day off, and I texted her. I was like, I just need to take a day, and she's like, I know, but I need you to approve a statement because you're the director of comms. And I'm like, okay, okay. And the reality of that moment was understanding, wait a minute, is this statement going to be positive and agree with me? And, is it going to politicize my body and my Blackness? So many thoughts went through my head in that moment. And when she sent it over and I read it, I just couldn't stop crying, because I just felt heard. I felt seen. I felt validated. I felt like, for an organization like the Santa Barbara Foundation to say the things in that statement was so powerful for me, that I felt like, wow, I feel at home, and I feel like I'm in the right place. And the beauty of Jackie is that she not only said, oh, we need to send this out, but the board's also behind us. And to take that to the board and to do all that work and everything about that is just, I just feel so proud to work at the Santa Barbara Foundation, because it's just, I'm just so grateful towards Jackie. I'm grateful towards the organization. And she's also like, that doesn't stop there. We're doing more. So I couldn't leave this call without saying, just, I'm so grateful for where I work, and the work that we have ahead of us, because we still got some work to do, but we have a team that's ready to do it.
Right.
That's so beautiful, Jordan, and thank you for sharing that with us. And we're not done with you yet. So first, I want to say what a privilege it's been to have you with us here today. I don't often find myself at a loss for words, but you've done that to me a couple of times today. And right now, my heart is racing, because the words that you shared just now have meant a special personal impact. So thank you. You've inspired us, you've blessed us with your presence and your wisdom. And we can't wait to, when we see you in person and it's safe, to give you a long enduring, warm embrace. That's what I keep telling everybody. You're not going to be able to get me on you. And I can finally give a hug. So we thank you for that from our whole heart, not the bottom of our heart, but our whole heart. And Touchstone's platform centers around what we refer to as leading with love. And we like to kind of wrap up our sessions with who we're visiting with, and in this case, you. What's your definition of leading with love?
I love that. I think it's listening, really taking the time to be an active listener, taking the time to build a relationship and connection with someone, taking a time to take all that listening and then work in a group towards a common goal. Leading with love is just being compassionate and open to the possibilities of what can be better and how we can be greater. It's important that love is central to all of that, because it's central to everything, really, if we think about it. And so, yeah, I'll leave on that note.
So I want to say something to our audience too, and I was kind of asking about this earlier when I was talking about how to kind of keep us engaged and not burning out. And when my kids were teenagers, and yes, I was still going to parent-teacher conferences, never missed one, I'm proud to say. You know, sometimes at that high school level, we would walk in and the teacher would say to us, not you, you don't need to be here. Your kids are great. And I'm like, no, I knew what they meant, but it's like, don't say that, because it's because we're showing up that our kids are doing really well. And so, and you kind of hit on this earlier with, you know, we got to think about what we want in our world, in our community, and making it better. So we have to keep showing up. So no matter how many tools in the toolbox we have, or how much knowledge we've gained, or how much we think we know, we still got stuff to learn. We still need to keep having the conversations, and we need to keep still showing up. So for the audience, I am just so thankful. Diane and I are so thankful that you're digging in and participating in these conversations as well, and thinking about things and whirling things around in your head and heart, and figuring out. Another statement that we learned a couple weeks ago is, what is mine to do? Because we all have a part. It's going to look different, but if we're all doing something together, we're going to move mountains, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So aside from these conversations, Touchstone cares and believes deeply in the work that we're going to continue to have these conversations. Jordan agreed with us early on, before everybody logged on, that he would come back around in a couple months and check on us and see what we're doing. And so, if there's some questions maybe you're holding still, send them to us. We'll collect them and we'll come back and revisit some things. Stay safe and well, and we love you all. Yeah. We love you, Jordan. Thank you for being with us. If you have any last parting words, feel free, go for it.
I always lean into being as vulnerable and as authentic as I can, and I hope that happened today. And I'm just so grateful and humbled to be brought on and to share. Because that's what's so important. So just thank you, and thank you for all the comments and everybody for joining us today. You asked me what keeps me going. This helps me keep going. So thank you.